right, you guys, podcast time.
Chew. It's quieter.
Fucking podcasting right now.
Chew quieter.
And now, to the podcast studio.
All right. It's your favorite show. We're back. It's Chew Quieter. And today we have a friend of ours on the show that some people are familiar with. His name is Chambliss Fewell. He is the proprietor of Elevated Offroad in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, right in Middle Tennessee. How's it going?
Correct. It's going well. How are you guys today?
Good.
Good, brother.
Good. Glad to be here.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
So as I said, you are the owner of Elevated Offroad. For those who are needing anything in Middle Tennessee, this is the shop to go to. Anyone that has a Jeep or a truck, or maybe they have a Malibu or a Cutlass they want to have lifted or something.
Listen, we got at least 3 lowering kits on the books right now, so we try to kind of do it all. We do, man.
I remember going to your shop that one time, and there was a Cutlass there. Or was it a Cutlass or Crown Vic or something?
I think that was a Grand Marquis. This is bad to say. I had an employee at the time who had a couple of rough days, bad days at the shop, and so I booked that job more as a punishment. It ended up screwing me because it took 2 days longer. We had to bring parts in, tied up a lift, so I learned my lesson on that one. But it was a Grand Marquis.
Armando had one of those, I think. He had a lowrider version of it.
I don't know that at all.
It wasn't a lowrider version. It was Grandpa's old Grandpa's old Mercury. That thing was beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
It was a 2006 with 28,000 miles on it.
That's the one you were trying to sell.
We sold it on Bring a Trailer for like $7,500.
You probably had those beads on the back seat and all that, so it's comfortable.
Massage seat cover.
No. Grandpa was fine Corinthian leather.
Had a box of tissue in there for sure, right?
There was 5 or 6 pair of blue blockers that I found just all over. All over. I have a few pair in the garage still.
Those infomercials were great.
I kept those, but he that thing got an oil change every 6 months, regardless if it went 100 miles or 5 miles.
So everyone used to make fun of blue blockers, but if you think about it now, you want a blue blocking lens in your sunglasses, your prescription glasses, whatever it might be, even your contact lenses now, they have a blue filtering system on it to protect your eyes from the blue ultraviolet, because we now found out, after making fun of blue blockers on TV for so fucking long, it's not good for your eyes.
No, not at all.
No. Nope.
So we've either just kind of evolved from making fun of them, or just realized, shit, we're old. We need this fucking technology.
We're old.
Absolutely. I don't like admitting that, but we are kind of older.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I discovered that I'm now needing to trim my nose hair and my ear hair and all this shit. And it's just, it's growing faster than I can keep up with it, like fucking grass.
Yeah. Yep.
Did someone else bring that up to you, or did you notice yourself?
I noticed it myself.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I was like, I thought I trimmed my sideburns. Oh, wait a minute. That's not sideburns.
That's not sideburn.
It's an ear burn.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and then nostril hair started connecting with the mustache. I'm like, this is not good.
It's not good, man. But part of life, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And just before we started recording, we were talking about, I was going to drink today just to celebrate you coming on the show with some whiskey. I have some old Forester, but I'm trying to get back on my fitness plan. I had pretty much the whole month of January to recover from an abdominal issue that I was having, and so I kind of hit it hard that month. We went through about 12 bottles of whiskey that month.
Dry January.
Yeah, dry.
Yeah.
Dry as a seal.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to. I did hit my goal for 2023, but I quickly gained it back, a lot of it back, with whiskey consumption in January, and not being able to work out because of the abdominal issue. So so now I'm back trying to get back to what I was at the end of 23 and then some. I'm trying to lose more.
Okay.
I'm trying to get to at least 200. I'd like to get back down to 190. So that would be great. I got a weight set in the garage now. I've got a stationary bike upstairs. So
Nice.
yeah.
I can't find motivation to work out at home. It's very difficult.
Really?
I just can't. My wife buys equipment things at the house, and the motivation's not there. There's always something else to do. And so I'm at the gym about 6 days a week in the morning. It's kind of a reset time for me also, to be honest. I like getting up, getting out of the house. I get about 45, 50 minutes in there and then can head into the shop, which is, if I walked out the door to my shop here, I can see the gym across the street. So it's super convenient. I got to get out of the house and do it.
So I was going to Planet Fitness for a long time. Jake Glazer actually is the one that inspired me to start getting up earlier and going to the gym. So I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning. I was at the gym by 5 and getting an hour and a half of gym time in. But the trouble is I start work at 7 a.m. So it's just that battle of trying to get in what I need to get in at the gym and then hustling back home so I can get logged on in time for my schedule.
Yeah.
So that's where working out at home has kind of benefited me, because I can, I don't have to wake up at 4:30 or 4 a.m. anymore. I can wake up at 6 and still get that hour and a half in if I needed to.
You save a lot of time doing that. My wife is in yours. She works from home. And so for her, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
For me, it's just, I like getting out. So
I did too. If my schedule ever changes, I might go back to the gym just because, getting out, like you said, it does something to you. It kind of like reboots your system in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I'd also like to get away from looking at these skinny bitches that I'm looking at on my fitness plan on my iFit that are trying to get me through the cycling thing. Like, come on, you can do it. I'm like, bitch, you're 102 pounds soaking fucking wet. You've got like years and years and years of cycling experience.
Yeah.
And then when we're doing the ones where it's like we're on the road, they're like, okay, even though we're going downhill, I want you to keep pedaling. And I'm like, bitch, shut the fuck up.
This is my rest time.
Yeah.
Aren't they giving you recommendations like what your settings on the bike need to be?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
It sets it for you. Like if
it sets it for you. Okay.
So if we're doing a road course and we're going uphill, it'll increase the level of
like resistance.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, in that regard, it's really nice. Like this morning, I went through. Where did I ride? I was in Colorado in Gunnison. Black Canyon. I did that ride, and then yesterday I did. I rode along the Colorado River in Moab.
Oh,
yeah. So
that's
each
pretty
ride,
cool.
So each ride is anywhere from 8 to 10 miles, which is good because if I was to do it, live in person in my city, I'd get to that 10-mile mark and be like, all right, someone come pick me up because I'm done.
Yeah. You just hop off the bike, man.
Yeah. But not only that, but living in Tullahoma, these country roads is not a place you want to really be riding a bicycle.
No, you'll get killed quick, man.
Yeah.
There's no lines painted on the road. You can't see because of the high grass. Don't want to be doing it out there.
Yeah. We'll get back to you growing up in Tullahoma in a while, but first we want to get to Elevated Offroad and let's get into the origins of it. How did it start?
This business for me started as a hobby. Keep it very short here, but I went to college up in Nashville. And back in about 99 or 2000, while I was in college, I had a wreck and totaled out a Grand Cherokee, a ZJ. It was a 98 ZJ my parents had purchased for me going to college. And I stupidly, but I guess it worked out, with that money decided to go buy a 79 CJ7 with a small block in it as my daily driver. I couldn't drive a manual at that point, to be honest. And so I bought this Jeep. I had to take my brother with me to pick it up to drive it back to my apartment because I couldn't even drive it home. So, but I kind of fell in love with it at that point, to be honest. That vehicle, there was just something about it. And I pretty much had a Jeep for the majority of the time from then until I started the business here with my old business partner, Jason Rogers, I got the business license in October of 2018. And so I just always had this enthusiasm for Jeeps, off-roading, modifying vehicles, just in general. And so I left a real estate career that had been pretty good to me, and went out on a limb and started Elevated up in Murfreesboro, which is where we're still located. Even though, like you mentioned earlier, I was living down in Tullahoma, so I was commuting about an hour each way every day. And so that's how the business started. In 2018, earlier that year, I had an opportunity with Zach Heisey, Randall Spear, and some of those guys to go to EJS and stay in the same house as the Dana Splicer guys. That was a complete fluke. I did not know them. I was a third wheel, but ended up really building some great relationships and staying in touch with Zach specifically. And just fell in love with Moab at that point, and that whole culture that I felt being out there. I already had an LJ, the red LJ that I kind of built that started all this for me. I had that vehicle in progress. I was building it in my garage by myself, didn't have a lift, didn't have the tools I really needed, and just kind of learned on the fly a lot of things about that Jeep. So that's where the passion really started to get bigger for me. And then Jason and I made that decision actually in Moab that year to start a business potentially. And it kind of grew from there. So
turning wrenches has always kind of been, sounds like it has always been part of you.
Well, starting in college, probably in my early 20s, I did not grow up in an environment with my household. My dad was an orthodontist, and he was not, I don't want to say he wasn't mechanically inclined, but we never had project vehicles, things of that nature. But from the time I turned 16, I was tinkering with swapping out radios and installing audio systems, different wheels, and just really enjoyed doing that, modifying or upfitting, whatever you want to call it, vehicles, customizing. And so it really didn't start, I guess, until high school, but I didn't learn how to do anything mechanically as far as any type of suspension work or, welding different types of suspensions until college. And I kind of got in with there used to be a group up in Nashville called the Dixie Crawlers. And it was the first Jeep club or off-road club that I had exposure to. Started going to their meetings and made some really good friends out of that group that I still have today. And they're the ones that kind of taught me what all that stuff was. And we'd go run power line roads in their CJs. And then it kind of took off for me.
What's been your biggest learning curve to adjust to? Is it the business side or is it the mechanical side?
Business side, 100%. It's the boring side, which would be the financials, the taxes, the payroll. That side of it is not, I don't want to say it's not where I excel but that's where the learning curve has been. Luckily, my in-laws here in town, my wife's mother owns a business consulting /tax/payroll firm. And so I'm able to turn the majority of that over to them, have it handled by the professionals who I trust, and focus more on what I enjoy doing with the business. So that's been a big blessing to me, to be honest, because that curve was huge for me. I didn't grow up really knowing any of that stuff. So
yeah. I mean, unless you're going to business school, that's something you have to learn. We're not born with that knowledge, just like we're not born with the knowledge of turning wrenches. So
correct.
Yeah.
I've learned some hard lessons along the way of stuff that I was ignorant or oblivious to that I should have been doing all along that, ended up biting me a little bit, and you got to play a little bit of catch up and figure out how to do certain things. And so it's, luckily we're running well right now and in a pretty good spot, but it's definitely taken time to get to this point.
How many techs did you start out with?
0. Jason and I, Jason was my partner here for about 10 months. And then due to some personal reasons, he had to adjust his life path, and I took over everything. So for the first 8 months, it was Jason and I, and then it was another year before I hired anybody in. I did all the tech work myself, learn on the fly, some of it, turned down a lot of jobs that I wasn't confident enough to do, to be honest. But I had this big building here and just me. And then I was doing all the return calls, the quoting, the sales stuff at night. And it was very tiring. That first year and a half, 2 years was rough. And then started hiring some techs and going through some people and putting together a little bit of a team. But I had a fear, to be honest, and I still have this fear today with this business. Is I've had trouble making that next big leap for fear of what the consequences could be if you couldn't handle it. Like if the work slowed down or whatever it was. And I always played that pretty cautious. And I could have hired a tech really early on, but just for whatever reason didn't do that. And so, we kind of did it how we did it here. And now we're running 3 techs. We got myself, Jonathan Sanders, my general manager, and we're actively hiring other people right now once we find those right pieces. So,
And you've expanded your building too, right?
not the footprint of the building, but yes, when we first got this building, it basically had one big bay door that entered this large metal building that we have. And so we worked with the owner of the building who will not sell it for anything, but to do improvements to the parking lot and repave everything, stripe everything out. He installed 2 more large bay doors for us. And so we've added nice heat in the building. Obviously, we have our lifts in and new compressors. So we've upgraded the building over time. Kind of some things as needed, and some things just needed to be done as far as we saw it would enhance even the appearance of the building. People who are looking to drop a lot of money on their vehicle, appearance matters. And so if you have a rundown parking lot with potholes with mud in it, the majority of the time it doesn't look as good. So we put some capital investments into that with partnership with our owner, and kind of have it looking pretty good right now, we think. So we're in talks right now to take over another building. We would not get rid of this location, but add 2 to 3 bays pretty much across the street to be able to continue to grow, because the work is there. So,
What's one of the goals that you've set for yourself that you've reached? And then what's another goal that you are going to try to reach for in the future?
I mean, I think a goal that we have set, it's very broad. It's just to still be in business. The majority of small businesses, regardless of industry, fail. 12, 15 months after we opened, COVID hit. And that was a huge kick in the junk to us, right? To a lot of people, especially when the majority of our business is disposable income, which wasn't there for a period of time. So we got through COVID, made it out of that. And then obviously the industry started booming, being outdoors, adventuring, the overland space, started getting much bigger. And so, I mean, the goal was 5 years to still be open and operating and turning a profit. And so we have hit that as of this past October of 23. That was our 5-year mark. We've just re-upped our lease at this building, and we're seeing that growth. For me personally, it was getting the right people in place to be able to feel comfortable handing off things to. Putting the right person to manage this part of the business so it can thrive and have whatever my talents are, even if they're not many, to be able to focus on, where they need to be, which I know where those need to be. And so I couldn't do that until I had the right people, because I was wearing so many hats. And turning over those pieces over has been difficult, but that's just part of it. So,
yeah. And I'm in a different arena, but I lead a team with my company that I work for. Mm-hmm. And to delegate stuff it's a little stressful sometimes, even when it's a simple task. It's just because you want it done right, and you're not sure if that person can do it right or do it, period. Yeah. So I think delegation of tasks and jobs is a widespread panic for everyone.
Right. I agree with that. And sometimes I have trouble stepping back and seeing the change from when we started to where we are now, because it happens gradually. You've been to my shop multiple times, Gabe, and Armando's been since the beginning multiple times to the shop. And so sometimes it's nice to kind of sit back and remember where we started, in those 2 or 3 days in a row where you might not have any jobs coming in and didn't know what was going to happen, to now we're booked 2-3 weeks out at any given time trying to add people. And so it is fulfilling to see that, as anybody would know, starting something up from scratch. I have a phenomenally supportive, amazing, beautiful wife who has been here. My wife, Jessica, has been in this the whole time, even, putting some savings into the business to start it, to supporting me if I have to stay late or take, the last, when I had our first baby, I left for Moab when the baby was, 5 weeks old, and left for 12 days and didn't even think anything about it. I was just like, I got this new business. I'm trying to get my name out there. I need to be at EJS. And she, without hesitation, said, then go. And not a lot of people have that. And so I've had support along the way. Just the relationships I've built with people like both of you and other people in the industry, have really shaped how I've navigated, growing Elevated and trying to do it the right way and trying to offer the right things to meet customer needs, but also still to be comfortable with what we're doing here. And it's just been a lot, man, but it's exciting. It's really exciting. I still love coming to work most every day. and we roll with anything that comes up that might be a little hiccup, but we're still here. So,
who are some of the partners that you have in the industry that help? I don't want to say help you along, but help you get these rigs fitted out?
Well, they most definitely helped us along. Also, your wording was correct there. I mean, our suspension of choice is rock crawler suspension when it comes to the Jeep world and now the truck world. We that's our go-to if it's in the budget constraints of what the customer wants. There's no doubt about that. We offer pretty much anything. I don't offer Metal Cloak here. I'm not even that familiar with that company. It's just something we don't do, but we do still sell Terraflex and Evo, and we sell Rough Country here because there's a place and a customer for Rough Country. But Rock Crawler and Jay, I was so excited when I saw, when I spoke with you and I was going to be on after JP, because I was just certain that his podcast appearance was going to be so terribly boring and engineering geared. And I thought, this is money, man. I can come on and it doesn't matter what I say. People will like this. And then sure as shit, he didn't say anything about engineering, hardly. And all he talked about were these badass stories he'd had with every guru in our industry. And I thought, holy shit. But JP has been phenomenal. Adam up there, that whole team. Armando and Will have been great friends of mine, who also helped me in the growth of this place tremendously, both with product and knowledge support and just talking back and forth. We have a group chat with, four of my best friends in the world, and Armando, Will, Travis, and Matt Loxley and myself are in this group chat. And it's, we talk about all manner of things, obviously, but at the end of the day, we have each other's back and we're there. And we've gone through some real good times and real tough times together, but they have definitely been in my corner the whole time starting this. We have a lot of industry partners that we set up with. Michael Noggle, who owns Infinite Offroad, is a locally owned LED lighting company, and we use a tremendous amount of his lights, as well as Rigid Industries. Damon up there has been phenomenal also. He made fun of me back at, I don't know what year it was that you used my Jeep at the booth at Daytona down at Jeep Beach, but he saw my Baja Design lights that they had sent me and made fun of me the whole event and won me over, man. And so Damon's been my boy. He came and visited me the other day. We worked on the Rigid truck here, and so I'm all for Rigid now. And the big thing for me is developing those relationships as friendships also. I mean, the business aside, if I shut down Elevated tomorrow and knock on wood, I wouldn't lose any of these friendships, because that's how much they've grown and how much they mean to me. It really wouldn't matter. A lot of the guys that I started, 5 years ago are not even in the industry anymore, and we still keep in touch and talk and know each other's families. And JP touched on it last week. Just the relationships behind the scenes of the business side are what are by far the most important to me in this. Just what it's been.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I mean, it was. I remember the first time I met you. I was coming out of the airport in Nashville. You were picking up Jess, and
that's right.
She had your son with her coming back from Scottsdale.
Yes.
Or Phoenix. And she was on the same flight.
It was Phoenix.
She was on the same flight as me coming back from Phoenix. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
We didn't even know each other, but I recognized you, and we had, we touched at that point to talk.
Yeah, we talked, and then I think like a couple months later, we shared a house at
that was at
Sheriff's with Jason Rogers and Bailey
and Andrew Bailey, and things just
and we drank a hefty amount of Jack Daniels that week.
I went hard in the paint with Jack Daniels for a lot of years, my friend.
And then we and you guys introduced me to country rap.
The hip hop.
The hip hop. I got the hip hop addiction from way back then.
You did, man.
And now it's the only thing I really listen to.
It's the best. People just don't know it yet. It's just so good, and
it's so different.
It's catchy.
It's so good and so terrible at the same time, and I love it.
It is, man.
Yeah. It's still better than listening to Eminem bitch about his baby's mom and his mom. So yeah.
Oh yeah, it's way better.
Yeah,
it's way better. But it's just, I mean, I forget which episode it was. I think it was with Andrew. The first time I met Gabe was at that big VRBO in Moab when Loxley flopped over, his Jeep and that whole thing. That's when I met you guys, when you were out there filming and doing your thing. And it's just, it's fun to look back on how far these relationships go back. We don't see each other, talk to each other all the time, the majority of us, but it's pretty cool that we can get together and it's like nothing changed.
So I don't know if you could see this picture over my shoulder here, but this was, I think, 2017. It was on Pritchett Canyon. I believe that was that year, 2017, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the year, yes, because that's the year I stayed with the Dana Spicer guys, and I didn't ride with Bailey and those guys that year, even though we all towed out together. But I believe it was 17.
Yeah,
Correct.
That was the first year that I met you.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually was a very fun year.
Oh, yeah.
That was a blast.
Yeah, I had a great time out there. I had actually come the year before without a Jeep. So 17 was my first year with my LJ that had been built and got to actually ride Moab. And then it just took off from there, man. I got it tattooed on my arm. I just, even though Moab's going through its pains right now, and I get it, people are going away from it. And I haven't even been DJing this last 2 years. I've had stuff come up and haven't been able to go. I'll be at Moab this year. It's still, when you drive into town in your own Jeep and you feel that culture and what's going on there, it's a really cool feeling out there, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. I took my dad back in, Armando was on that trip, and the first Mob Moab, I took my dad out there and let him experience it. It was just, it's just so much fun.
Yeah,
it
was a fun time with Richard.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a whole
experience.
Know
what he was getting into. But,
he left a new man.
He did. That first night we got there ahead of everybody. My dad and I did. We got into the house and went and had dinner by ourselves that night. Everybody else was coming in the following morning, I believe. And that was I was 41 or 42 at the time. And I came down the next morning and woke up with severe pain and had a kidney stone that morning.
And right. You had to go to Grand Junction.
I had to be rushed to the hospital in Grand Junction, and they gave me some medicine. I left against doctor's orders because Elevated was sponsoring part of the kickoff party for Mob Moab. I was like, I got to be there. So I hobbled out of the hospital, and we ended up wheeling the whole week and going back. But that whole trip was wild. But, man, how much fun.
So I think I remember Pritchett being for your red LJ. Wasn't that the shakedown run for it?
Yeah, it was the shakedown run with that. Yeah, I just put Matt Loxley would get pissed if I say this. I just put my tons. They were Ultimate 60s, so they were pretty much tons. So I put the Dana Ultimate 60s. It was on
3/4 tons.
Fuck me, I had his opinion.
New coilovers. Thank God for Adam Collin. He overnighted the day before I left long arms that were the wrong length when they got sent, or I wouldn't have made the trip. And so we got those in. We left about 4 hours late. But, yeah, that was the shakedown run. I was doing flex testing in front of the house on the ramp of my trailer, just to make sure nothing was going to tear out or who knows what. So, but Lord was looking after me at that point because the LJ did great on that trip. LJs are LJs, right? But it just walked everything. And I was blown away by Pritchett the first time. It was very intimidating because I'd never even been on the trail, much less been behind the wheel. And that first time, some of those inclines looked pretty rough. But, man, what a blast.
Isn't that the trip where you guys ended up in the gulch with your dad's Tahoe with the trailer?
Yes. Well, that's the time that we blew a tire coming down the mountain into Denver. Coming down the mountain into Denver, we had blown a tire on the trailer and it was all over the place with my LJ. No, that was the JLU that we had.
That was the JLU.
That was the second mob.
That was the second mob. The JLU, and you guys ended up in the ditch.
Not only did we end up in the ditch, we also, coming down the mountain, we lost a tire at that point on the way back. And then in Kansas on the way back, I tried to push it too far, and we ran out of gas for 3 hours before AAA could get there. That was a disastrous trip. It was a blast. All these pictures behind me, you can see my dad and I right there. That was from that trip on top of the world. But I wouldn't trade that trip for anything except for those 3 parts because they were rough. I've been pretty lucky going out there, coming back the whole time. So,
yeah.
So
just those things that happen.
Those things happen, man.
That we just keep going.
That's exactly right.
You touched on your home life a little bit. You've got 2 small kids. You've got a wife.
I do.
Your wife has to have like a humongous heart just to have that acceptance that you're trying to do this this business, and it's going to pull you away at times. So I know how it is for my wife, and I'm sure Armando's wife is the same way. There's sometimes a struggle, and you try to find that right balance. How do you find your balance to, to keep your family oriented the way it is? Because you guys are really close. So how do you find that balance?
I didn't find it for a while, to be honest. The first 2 years of Elevated, my close contacts, friends in the industry were people that traveled with shows. So 12, 14, 15 shows a year. And I was under the misconception, but I thought the way to grow this business and to get our name out is to go to every one of these shows. So I think those years I was hitting 8 to 10 shows, which the majority of them did me no good because they weren't even close to Middle Tennessee. I mean, I was going to Bantam and Toledo, the Florida shows, Myrtle Beach, and I loved it because I met a lot of people, which indirectly did help me in the business. But about year 3, I had to calm that down and realize this is at the end of the day, this is a business. And my priority is to my family and then my business. And so I had to scale my shows back, even though I had a lot of fun going to them, and focus on the ones that had a benefit for the business and realize that local shows were much more beneficial than going to Bantam or Toledo, even though I loved them. And so that's when that balance started to happen. And my wife noticed that, and we'd had talks about it. I was just gone all the time, but as your kids get a little older and responsibility grows, and my wife works full time, she has a phenomenal job and she works her tail off. It wasn't fair to put her in that position over and over, or to ask my parents or her parents to fill in and keep the kids for a long weekend. But some of those shows, you had to go on a Wednesday for a Thursday, Friday, Saturday show and get home late Sunday, and then 2 weekends later doing the same thing. And it just got to be too much. So I just had to get in perspective what was important and what wasn't, and try to attack it that way, I guess. And that has paid off. I neglected local events and shows for those first at least 2 years and realized, okay, that's my customer base. That's where I need to be focusing energy and time, more than going to the big shows. I still went to Smoky. That's only 3 hours for me. We get a lot of business from Smoky Mountain. And some of the other ones I'd go to, but it was more of a vacation at that point. If I wanted to go to, Panama City, Jeep Jam down there, that was a vacation where I would take my wife and we would go, and have that time together, as well as, put my Jeep in the PSC booth or the rock crawler booth and get some publicity from it, but at the same time, not be gone from the family that much. So, but you're right. It's definitely a balance there, which I didn't understand at least the first couple of years. I was just going.
So what are you doing these days with the family to have fun with the family?
My kids are both at great ages. So over the next 14 days of my life, I have, starting obviously, Valentine's Day just happened, but I have my son's birthday on February 27th, my wife on March 1st, and then March 5th is my daughter. So all those birthdays are real close together. So right now, that's what we're focusing on. Obviously, we like the parties and stuff, but my son will be 9 and my daughter will be 4. So my son is all about playing sports outside, and he's eat up with Legos right now. So we go to the Lego store and we do stuff outside, and he's not big into the off-roading. My wife never was either, but we've really gotten into the overland space. And I know that's a real trendy term, and so take it for what it's worth, but camping, adventuring, overlanding, just getting outside. My son loves that stuff. And my wife is into it. And so we are, starting when the weather gets a little better here in the next 30, 45 days, we'll be camping and we'll be going to state parks, or, we just bought some land north of town. It's not a tremendous amount of acreage, but it's enough out there where we can go get away from people, have some quiet, and we'll take the truck out there in the rooftop tent and the grill, and we'll just hang out, man. And it's, that's primarily where my focus is right now when it comes to spending time with the family outside of just the normal things. We're pretty tight. My wife works from home. I mean, I don't do a lot anymore. I used to go out a lot with my buddies here, or, go on these, weekends to shows, but just don't do a lot of that anymore. I think Andrew kind of said it. We all had to calm down at some point. And I've really done that, as I think we all have, as you just kind of get older and priorities change. And so, spending time with my kids, if I can mix spending family time with the passion of off-roading or adventure or camping, overlanding, whatever it is, that's my sweet spot. And I'm lucky where my family's got on board with that and seems to really enjoy it.
So when you need me time, what are you doing?
Well, the gym is me time in the morning. But it's still for me being in the garage, tinkering on something. Even this new truck I bought, like I'm adding lights to it, and we're doing suspension lifts, and a lot of that stuff I'll wait and do that at home instead of doing it at the shop, just because I usually have about 2 hours every night between the time when my wife goes to bed and when I go to bed. And so most of those times you can find me in the garage with the music on a lot lower than it used to be, but listening to music or a podcast and wrenching and, just messing around and tinkering. That's kind of what I like to be doing. And, so that's where most of my nights end up, to be honest, or on YouTube. Unfortunately, it just is what it is. I go down those YouTube, rabbit holes or black holes, whatever you want to call them, and, trying to gain some knowledge there. But, it's usually out in the garage in the nights or in the gym in the morning. And I put my headphones in the gym. I don't talk to anybody, and I just kind of do my thing.
So we have a question from a listener. And I think it's a very good question, to be honest with you. The question is, how many screwdrivers does it take to get kicked out of a Titans game?
Well, Travis, it takes that's a whole podcast in itself, that whole afternoon, but a lot. It takes a lot, and it takes starting really, really early. Travis Goldstein and I took him to a Titans game. He's a big Miami Dolphins fan, and they played, I guess, 2 years ago. And so I had Travis. He flew in from Charlotte, stayed at my house, and my family has PSLs to the game. Really good tickets right behind the visitors bench. And so Travis, we've been looking forward to this for like a year. And sure as hell, we went to Nashville that morning. We got there before the bar opened. We went into Willie Nelson's bar, and we started drinking double Tito screwdrivers. And by the time we walked across the river on the pedestrian bridge to the game, it wasn't lights out, but it was not good, and got pretty belligerent that game. Security came. They didn't kick me out, but it was super close. I mean, it was super close. And we actually both found out the next day we had COVID, so we pretty much infected the whole stadium with COVID. And Travis got so mad.
Tennessee.
Miami
all of Nashville.
was losing.
All of Nashville had COVID from us.
Yeah, that's right. They pretty much did. And I remember getting up at the end of the game, and my legs were amazingly sore, like I'd never felt before. And I was like, that's super, super weird. But I drank a lot. And so, but sure enough, the next day it was there, and I took a home test and had COVID. And told Travis like the day after that, he's like, dude, I wouldn't even want to tell you either, but I had COVID also. So we don't know what happened, but we both caught it. And but we had a good time at that game. So that was, good stuff, man. Thank you for the question, Travis.
Yeah, thank you, Travis, because I only knew bits and pieces of that story. I didn't know how much you drank prior to. I thought all of that consumption was at the stadium.
Oh, no, it was prior.
No.
It was prior to the point I would say from the back of the players' bench, the Miami bench, our seats are second row 50-yard line. And so I'm no more than 30 feet from the bench. And so if you scream, they hear you. And I was very belligerent to some players. One of them got security and said I'd used a racial slur, which everyone around me luckily vouched that I certainly did not. But he was just trying to get me kicked out because I was on him pretty good. And Travis was like, bro, you got to calm down. Like, that guy's no joke. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. But, probably won't do that again anytime soon.
So next year.
Yeah, next year.
Well, yeah, whenever Miami comes back and plays.
Yeah, Miami's not scheduled to come to Tennessee for a while.
That's right. That's probably a good thing.
For a while.
That's right.
So we touched on it a little bit. You grew up in Tullahoma, which is just 30 minutes for me in Shelbyville.
Yes.
It's a fantastic little town.
Yeah.
I drove through the downtown area. My archery place is right down the street
Taylor's.
from Taylor's. You know where it's at. So
I know them.
Yeah. So seeing the community where that was kind of, the epicenter of the community right there. It's pretty nice little small town. What was it like back then growing up?
It was a nice place. To be honest, it wasn't a whole lot different. There's just more restaurant and retail places, right? So Tullahoma has a huge, mostly civilian, but has a huge Air Force base there, Arnold Engineering Development Center, AEDC. And the whole town kind of thrives off that base. A lot of engineers, so the education level in Tullahoma is really high. The teachers at all the public schools were Tullahoma doesn't work off a county system. They separated and have Tullahoma city schools. And so always ranked growing up top 5 in the state as far as the school system. Not me, but the school system. And, a lot of engineers, like I said, would come on to be teachers. They would retire there. And so, but Tullahoma, because of the base, had a huge turnover like most military towns do, because people were stationed there. They would leave and it would refill. So Tullahoma's been between like 15 and 20,000 people for like 40 years. It has not grown. But it's always had growth because the base was there. So like we were the only ones that had a movie theater, at least a decent sized movie theater for a long time. Shelbyville, where you are, had the one down on the square, but only showed a couple films. And so we were the only one that had a mall. Growing up, Tullahoma only had one sit down restaurant, and that was Shoney's. That was it. And so we were going out to eat after church. It was Shoney's. And it's obviously grown since then. There's a lot more restaurants and retail. And to be honest, I hadn't been down there in about 2.5 years, even though I'm only 45 minutes from there. My dad was orthodontist. He sold his practice, and he's built a house up here where I live in Murfreesboro. And so I really don't have a real reason to go down anymore. But it was a good place to grow up, grew up on about 26 acres that my parents had built a house on. And so we had a pond and room to, drive go-karts and do a bunch of cool stuff. And so it was a lot of fun.
So I'll give you a reason to go back. If you want to go back with me, we can go visit
Sure.
George Dickel Distillery.
Oh, absolutely. Down in the hollow.
Yeah. I've been meaning to go. I just haven't been, but again, I'm trying to take it easy a little bit on the whiskey just because I've been hitting it so goddamn hard.
Yeah.
I would like to visit that place with you, just because I know you've probably been there dozens of times, right?
Yeah, I've been there a lot. Jack Daniel's obviously is only 15 minutes outside of Tullahoma. So that really dominated the spirit industry down there until George Dickel was bought out by Diageo, which is a global owner of spirit companies and a lot of other things. So they started being able to put the money into that place to really make it nice. And so, growing up, everyone knew Jack Daniels. I met my wife at Jack Daniels. We both worked there. We were employed at Jack Daniels. That's where we met. And so I have a big part of my history is there. But that George Dickel distillery, it's much smaller, but has such a cool feel. And the product is great. So if you want to go down there, man, I'm game. It's a really cool spot.
Sweet. Yeah, I definitely want to go.
You will enjoy it.
Yeah, I've always wondered though. What? Obviously, Armando and I grew up in a little fishing village called Los Angeles.
Yeah, so, I've heard of that.
I can't imagine growing up in the country like you have. The way that I pictured it is, the difference between a couple of cholos out there just robbing the liquor store, and then you out here in the country being Huck Finn. Right. So. Yeah, is that pretty much the comparison, or was growing up in the country in the 70s, so much different than what my perspective might be?
Well, I think it's all about perspective, because even though I grew up in a small town in the South, the Bible Belt, I grew up very conservative, very stereotypically country, right? Even growing up in Tullahoma, because it was still considered a city, I had friends that would live out in Normandy. Like where George Dickel is, that was what I considered at that point living out in the country. I thought because I had paved roads and I could be at Kroger's and, to buy groceries in 10 minutes, that was not country. So it's all about people's perspective, right? Because I grew up thinking, man, I wish I lived out there. Just because I thought that was a cool thing to live out of town and have a farm or have some land and cows. So I didn't grow up with that. But, so I think it's all about perspective. But as you get older, and like I went to college, or, I lived out in Arizona for a little while. People hear where you're from and your town size, and they think, that's out in the country. So, it's definitely all about a perspective. I worked in Prescott, Arizona at Matt's Saloon down on Whiskey Row. And, it was a honky tonk bar in Prescott, Arizona. And I was the only guy working there with a semi-Southern accent, and everybody thought I was from where these country songs were written, right? And I just really never felt that, because I grew up in a city. That to me, Tullahoma was just a city, even if it was a small one. So,
the first time I ever heard a country accent, I was in Denver, and it was a coworker, and he was from the Knoxville area,
right?
And we called him. Oh God, what was his name? We called him a name that's like a normal name, but it wasn't even his name. So like his name was Randy, but we called him we called him George just because they had a draw to it.
Yeah.
So I always heard stories about, because I guess the area that he grew up in he grew up in Knox County, not Knoxville.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and that's the reason why I had that in my head. Like he was out there playing with frogs and just a fishing pole with a string on a piece of a branch or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
He had one pair of shoes and they were only used on Sunday to go to church.
That's right.
Yeah, he had overalls with no shirt on under and just cut off at the knees.
Sure, man.
That sort of thing. So I always imagined that's what the country lifestyle was. And I always thought to myself, that sounds really fucking boring. But now that I live out here, I'm thinking to myself, fuck, I wish I would have grown up in the country.
Yeah. I wouldn't have traded where I grew up for probably about anywhere, to be honest, looking back on it and now knowing people from all over the country and having exposure to people. I wish I could offer that same thing to my kids, and I'm certainly trying to do that. You know, I don't live in Murfreesboro. I live north of town now. We moved out of town a little bit just to try to replicate some of that because it was great growing up in that fashion. You know, getting out of the city, not worrying so much about traffic and about certain other things. And we're still only 10, 12 minutes from the grocery store, but I'm trying to replicate that as much as possible here. Unfortunately, Nashville has driven land prices up so daggum much. It's hard to replicate it and stay anywhere close to civilization. But we, like I said, we just bought a little land that we're looking to break ground and build a little house on this year, and just at 9 acres. And so it's, you know, we're trying to have our little piece of that out there.
I don't know about you, Armando, but not, you know, looking back on it, would you have the same feeling you would rather grow up in the country than you would in the city that like we did?
Oh, definitely. But I mean, it's relative though. I mean, I grew up like going down to the lake, down to the reservoir, up at the park closest to me. There was like a little stream, and I would be the freaking little brown huckfin kid with shoes on, catching frogs.
Absolutely.
So it's a matter of perspective of what you're into and where you're at. That kind of dictates what you want to do. I mean,
Right.
we used to go up there and just catch frogs. Just go up there, tadpoles. I'd come with a cup of tadpoles, filthy, dirty, wet, and muddy, and just walk home and carry my shoes.
Absolutely. Ever since I've known Armando, he would have fit in where I grew up because those things that we did and that we got to enjoy just daily life, he has always shared like a passion for that stuff. Like he even listened to hip hop. Like he's always been kind of a brother I wish would have grown up with me. So.
Yeah, and I grew up with country music too. I mean, I grew up with the classic country and really probably got to really appreciate and love country music more probably in the 90s when I was a little bit older and it made sense to what life was. But I always figured that I would love to be in that part of the country and to be like in that. I mean, it's my dream is to be able to pick up at Arizona. As far out of nowhere that I live in Arizona, there's still a lot of stuff here that I would trade for moving out to Nashville or somewhere between Nashville and Chattanooga, like Tullahoma area would be nice. A little further south might be good. And to be out in that area, right on the lake, I'd love to have a house on the lake and pontoon. So 4:30 when that bell rings, I go run to the pontoon boat.
Oh, we're going to get you here, man. You've been talking about it too long.
Yeah,
it's such a popular place to relocate, this Middle Tennessee area, for a lot of people, and there's good reason for that. So,
yeah. I was on that trying to get my kid to Vanderbilt for the longest time, and she just like, I don't want to go. I'm like,
why?
So I'm like, why? Get her to freaking Vanderbilt. Come on.
That's right, man.
So now she's staying in Arizona, so I'm stuck here for a little while longer.
Stuck here for a minute.
I've been annoying Chambliss for a while now, since I think that it was the day after I got to Murfreesboro. I went to his shop to say hi, and I've been bugging him ever since then. I had some tires that I left in his showroom for months.
Oh, there's still permanent marks on my epoxy floor from those PFG red labels.
I think I would be a different person right now if I didn't grow up in a gang infested neighborhood. I don't think. Even when I moved to Denver, when I left LA, I'd be laying in bed at night and worrying something is wrong because I'm not hearing police helicopters above my head. I'm not hearing sirens every 10 seconds. And I was always thinking, what the fuck is going on? How come am I going deaf or what's going on?
Right.
So it was just getting used to normalcy. And I never had that sense of normalcy because there was always shit around me.
Right.
And then now there's even less sirens. There aren't any. The only helicopter I hear is the ones that are flying from
The base.
the base over to the one in Kentucky.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it right now.
Fort Campbell.
Yeah, Fort Campbell.
Yeah.
So that's the only time I see helicopters.
Yeah. Either that or life flight. That's the only thing you see.
Yeah. And it's just I can't stop thinking like I wouldn't have been such a bitter person for 20 years. I wouldn't be having this, I don't know what you call it, but like a sensory deprivation from violence. If I see violence, I'm like, oh, really? I want to see more. Normal people would be like, oh shit, I need to turn my head away because someone's eyes about to get ripped the fuck out, and I'm just like, do it.
Right.
So even when Matt Loxley took me hunting, he said, you're going to kill a deer, and you're going to feel like a sense of almost sadness, and you're going to have the shakes because it's kind of like an adrenaline rush. And I'm not saying I've ever shot anyone because I don't want anyone knocking on my door, but
statute of limitations is probably gone. So
true. So,
still though, let's just cap that.
safe and sorry.
That's
so
right.
after I killed my first deer, I had a sense of, oh, this is just meat from my freezer. I didn't have those feelings that he thought I was going to have.
Right.
I still appreciated the deer giving its life for me, and I still kind of looked it over like, wow, this is a beautiful animal, and this is kind of a crazy experience. But I wasn't shaking. I didn't have that adrenaline.
Sure.
And I almost feel like I missed out on that.
Yeah, I can see that. He obviously grew up probably a lot like me in a totally different environment, and I remember having that feeling. And I remember people telling me I would have that feeling, and it was fairly accurate. But I didn't grow up being with the exposure you had to certain things. It just wasn't here.
Yeah, I remember one time we're talking about police stories a couple of weeks ago, and I was in junior high school, and I was at a Tasty Freeze on Whittier Boulevard, and these cops. I wasn't supposed to be there. I was way past curfew. And there was a bunch of gangbangers there, and there was some shit going down, and the cops show up, and they're like, you and your friends come over here. And they're like, what the fuck are you doing out here? It's like 1 a.m. You're around a bunch of gangbangers. What the fuck are you doing here? And we're just like, oh, we just, thought we'd come hang out. He's like, I'm going to tell you what, you got 30 seconds to get home or I'm arresting all of you. So we ran full sprint from Whittier Boulevard to our friend's house down near this place called Sorensen Park. He lived across the street from it.
Right.
It's probably a good 2 miles, and we just did not stop running. But what we knew of is that in Sorensen Park, the cholos were so fucking territorial. They had fuckers always hiding in trees for like centurions, like waiting for other gangbangers from other neighborhoods to come in and try to start shit. So they would jump out of the fucking trees. So we get to the park, and a fucker just jumps out of the tree like, who the fuck are you? Where are you from? And we're like, oh, fuck. And my friend was like, oh, I know you. You know my brother and this and that. So luckily we got a pass, and we just were able to go to his house. But it was just things like that I wish I never experienced. And I wish I had experienced more of, I'm going to go fucking catch a frog in the creek. I'm going to go, play in the mud. I'm going to go do some fishing with my homemade fishing pole, that sort of thing. So a lot of people make fun of the country lifestyle, but I think now that I look back on it, I make fun of people in the city that have to deal with the crime.
Yeah.
Because they have no way. They either don't want to get out of it, or they just don't have a way to get out of it.
Yeah.
Especially with the economy the way it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some just don't want to get out of it. Some just, that's what they know. That's what they've been brought into. It's all they know is that.
Yeah.
So, definitely a very, very very different upbringings, even between you and I, from where we grew up. Like I can say from birth till probably age 16, 17, I didn't do any of the shit that I did. I mean, my parents took us out to go camping and doing all the other crap all the time. So like I said, I was always
Right.
the dirty brown kid floating around everywhere, fishing and skipping rocks and doing all that stuff. And then when I started becoming a teenager and friends hanging out, started getting into the hood rat side of shit.
Right.
But I guess I consider myself lucky to not have to be pushed that far into that gang side.
Right.
Yeah. Well, look at let's switch gears a little bit because it's fucking depressing.
Amen.
You recently last year you started a trip called the Elevated Experience.
Yeah.
And that was in Colorado.
Yes.
And this past year you went to the Pacific Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
What was your drive for starting this expedition series?
That was something Will Perriman and I had been talking about for a year and a half before we even started organizing that Utah, Colorado trip, going on 2 years ago now. The drive for it was just, you live on this side of the country also. And so being able to go out and visit and wheel places like Moab, Sand Hollow, places like that, give you exposure to that part of the country, but you're pretty isolated to where that location is to wheel in. Like, yeah, Moab might have a 20-mile radius of trails, but you're still in that 20-mile radius. And I've been out there so many times, and I had the desire in a four-wheel drive vehicle that was outfitted and that could also benefit, to be honest, my shop here. We could build something that would work with that, to go out and do overlanding trips and get some really good mileage under our belts and be able to experience things. That trip is called the Elevated Experience for a reason. It is not about the vehicle or even the terrain as much as the experiences of the people we're doing it with. We could just as easily do the Elevated Experience in Florida as we could Utah and Colorado, or this past year we did the Pacific Northwest up in Washington State. It just so happens that the scenery out there is phenomenal, so why not do it out there, right?
Right.
And so that's where we're focusing at, is on the experience. It's not to make money. It's not to grow a big YouTube channel, even though those are things that are part of what we're doing as far as capturing the media and sharing that and bringing on sponsors to help us promote what we're doing. But it's about the experience and spending time with people in the industry that we value and respect, not only the brand and the product that they work with or for, but also we respect that friendship that we have with that person, that relationship. And so that's what we've done. And we only have 2 trips under our belt. We are in talks right now. It looks like this year we're going to be doing 3 or 4 more what we consider like mini trips instead of doing this big long 7, 8, 9 day excursion. We were going to try to do Alaska in September, but we're going to push that to 2025. There's quite a few reasons for that, but we'll have more experience at that point and a little better understanding and time to plan that. But so we've had phenomenal sponsors that have come on and have gone on the trip or supported the trip. The media that Jose Valdez and his team, Josh Steele, have put out for us has been incredible. I don't say this to promote and push the channel like we need clicks, but if you want to see what that's like, we have the Elevated Experience YouTube channel where those feature films that Jose has captured and edited are located. And would love for people just to see what we're doing, because we certainly have a mindset to not only do those sponsor style trips, but we also want to offer these trips to just everyday average people that have capable vehicles. Yeah, here's some of the footage here.
So here's a clip of that. This is the trailer for the Pacific Northwest. I mean, look at that fucking scenery, man.
We were blown away. There's my wife and I. We were blown away by the scenery up in Washington on the east side of the Cascade Mountains, driving all the way up. It blew me away, beyond what I thought it would be.
Yeah, good job to Jose for that edit in the filming there. It's
yeah.
I'm still jealous because I didn't go. I couldn't go.
Armando
it was a great trip. It was a great trip. I've been on both trips, and it's the other cool thing about what's being captured too is the variation of vehicles and equipment that everyone brings out. I mean, I just go my Ram, and I've slept in the back seat, and we've done this underlanded AF as my hashtag, because I'm like, I don't have a rooftop tent, I don't have a $1,000 fridge or whatever, but I'm still going and enjoying it. And the key is just get out, find something that you love, and go do it. Go see the epic views. We woke up in some of the most incredible places both years. We woke up, we pulled in sometimes late at night or foggy. I think we had cloud coverage at the base of the mountain.
Yeah.
And we woke up, and I opened up my eyes and looked out and went, holy fuck.
Yeah. It doesn't seem fucking real.
And it's just like, it would be like if you were to camp at top of the world, get up there at night, and then wake up for the first time and be like,
correct.
Where the hell did I just come to? You understand how epic that view is. You wake up like that and going, this can't be real. Like,
correct.
This is a dream still. I'm still dreaming. And I think most of the days that we woke up in very cool places and you enjoyed the view, even if you were next to that river, next to the mountains, everywhere we woke up was just like, this is just badass.
Yeah, but Armando's right. A big part of this is not being, and there's nothing wrong with these other films that are out there that are very Jeep centric, and it's because a lot of them are doing hardcore wheeling, and that's by far the best vehicle to do that in. But we've had everything from full size Rams, which I took my first year. I had my F-150 there the last year. We've had Broncos. We had the Rockslide Engineering old Willie's truck with an LS swap the first year. So we're just trying to let people know it doesn't really matter what's in your driveway for the most part. You can throw a tin in there and a cooler and go experience something pretty fun, pretty magical with people that you like. And that's at the center of what we're doing here. Yes, we're going to continue to go to really cool, wild places because that's what we want to do. But some of these mini trips this year are going to start in the East Tennessee area in the Smoky Mountains and go up to the coast of North Carolina. Probably going to do something up in New England, in Boston, then go over to the coast and drive up. Maybe go lobster fishing, who knows? But just, it's about the experience. Like I said, not the vehicle, not necessarily the location as much, but the people that are there and what we're doing. So,
yeah, I went on an overlanding trip 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. Anyway, we started out in Colorado and ended in Utah, just like you did.
Yeah.
And by far, it's a whole different experience than it is to rock crawling. You cannot compare the two. For any hardcore rock crawlers that are just like, oh, they're a bunch of pussies, they're this and that. No, it's not like that at all. It's just a whole different experience, because if you want to take your rock crawling rig on some of these trails, you can, sure. But it's
absolutely
humongous overkill.
Yes.
The purpose of overlanding is to get to these destinations and appreciate them for what they are.
Yeah.
Not to just crush the rocks and say you got over this obstacle that no one really fucking cares about. They care more about the scenery.
That's right.
No.
And go ahead.
We did cool stuff in the whole time. We went into Ouray, we went into Silverton, we went into these little towns that you've heard about, and done cool things. We did a little fishing, we did a little paddle boarding, we hung out at the water. We went into town, had a brewery, had a tour of the brewery. So everything we've done on these trips has been so much more than just a wheeling. It's the whole package of everything, not just over a rock. Okay, we're done now. It was great to have the time, and we got to camp at like 4 or 5 p.m. set up everyone's camp and started a fire and just hung out and made drinks and dinner.
We've seen on the business side of things here, at least in our area or regionally, and I think it's probably all over the country from people I've talked to, we've seen this big shift in our customer base between the hardcore wheeling guys who have gotten either to an age or a point in life with family where it's not that it's not feasible anymore, but it's where they're ready for a transition. Whether it's they have kids that they can't go hardcore rock crawling with, but they still want to experience the outdoors with, we're seeing 2 overland build customers to every, maybe even 3 or 4 to every one guy who wants to come in and build a Jeep for rock crawling right now. And both have their place, and I've enjoyed both. But I'm in that spot in my life. Like I have young kids who could easily go on an overland style camping trip and see some pretty phenomenal places without the risk of me being on Pritchett or behind the rocks and rolling my vehicle and being scared or having to hold back because of that. And so we're just seeing this big shift. I've talked to other people in the industry about this over the past year. And that trend is moving that way. And I'm sure it will roll back and these things go in cycles. But, that's where my focus is personally and as a business right now, because that's where the customer base is on a very large scale.
So, I mean, as you know, I had a rock crawler and now I have a Tacoma. And I think this is going to be my transition also, because I'm not young anymore. Let's face it. None of us are. And a full day of rock crawling is it takes you quite a while longer to recuperate from that, from the jostling, from hitting your head on the roll cage on accident to just certain things, even just walking up a trail to scout your line.
Yeah.
It takes a lot more out of you as you get older. And then it comes to a point where you're like, fuck, is it even worth it anymore?
Yeah. I agree. I don't want to spend every Sunday after going to a local park like I used to 20 times a year having to clean my vehicle. When I have my kids inside, I'd rather be spending time with. Rum helps a lot after those wheeling trips. But there's only so much rum you can drink, right? So it's a very natural progression. And to be honest, I'm glad it's there, and I'm glad the overlanding space has gotten as big and popular as it has, because if it hadn't, I probably wouldn't have rotated into that so easily. I would have had a much more difficult time selling my rock crawler, the LJ I had built. And even this past JL that I built, on 60s and the whole deal, to go do that, I just lost a lot of interest in it, to be honest. And so I sold that. So right now I have a Raptor, and we've built that to be able to go do any style of overlanding that I want to throw at it. And but it's also a great daily driver vehicle that I can run to Florida with my family in. And that, like I said, I can't reiterate it enough. I tell 2 or 3 people a day in the showroom out here, that's where my focus is right now. And that's where I'm finding fulfillment and enjoyment that's taken the place of all those rock crawling trips.
Is it harder to develop a relationship with overlanding companies than it was for rock crawling companies?
Yes. A lot of the overlanding companies, when all this became so popular right after COVID, or during COVID and after, were what I consider more boutique companies. They were on a smaller scale than a rock crawler, Rough Country, Terraflex, those kind of places. So yeah, trying to get in those doors was a little more difficult. And I had not been to the events to meet those people face to face for the most part. Back in 2019, I went to Overland East up in Lynchburg, Virginia. And that was my first exposure to any type of organized overlanding show event. And the customer base is completely different. A lot of times the budget is completely different. And so it's a whole different type of build that we're selling and building a relationship around what we're doing to that vehicle. A lot of people's overland vehicle is their daily driver, whereas a lot of Jeep people, it's not. And so it's a whole shift in how you operate the business to tailor what you're doing to both of those customer bases. We will continue always to do both. I got 2 LJs on the lot now. We're doing long arm kits on and 40s and Lockard and the whole deal. But I have way more vehicles out here that we've done mild lifts on 35s with bed racks and things like that. That's just what we're seeing.
Let's get back to the elevated experience really quick.
Yeah.
What was it like working with Mr. Corey Osborne?
Phenomenal. I knew Corey from events up until that point, and when Will and I decided to reach out to him and he decided to come on board, that relationship, went very, very well. And Corey is a phenomenal wealth of knowledge. He's an incredible person, and he's also amazing on camera. If you watch that first film that we did, so much of that film and the interest in it is due to Corey and his preparation and his knowledge of that area and how comfortable he makes you feel. But he's also a guy that can hang out and bullshit at night and have a drink with you. And it's just, he's a special person in my opinion. And the community is very lucky to have him. I wish that Corey was from everywhere, because I wish he had the knowledge of everywhere we want to take a trip. It's hard to replicate that person. And, I couldn't be happier to have had him on that first trip. And he just couldn't make the Washington trip, but I think in the future, even if it's just as a participant and coming along and not narrating the trip, I think he'll be involved because his passion for that overlanding, off the grid living, camping is just, it's off the charts. And definitely we want to incorporate him on trips we're doing in the future.
Yeah. He's a real
100%.
Yeah, he's a really great guy.
He is, man.
I've known him for, God, I want to say 7-8 years or so. And the first time I met him, it was very brief. The second time I met him, he remembered my name. And I was just like, how the fuck did you remember my name? I'm like, just a normal guy that just does the filming shit. And we were kind of like, I don't know if it's because we're both from Colorado or what it was, but even his range of knowledge with remembering people's names is pretty fucking amazing.
Yeah.
I'll see him interact with people when he's working with the RTI ramp, or not the RTI ramp, the metal cloak, UTI, yeah.
CTI.
Yeah. And his interaction with people, he's just the most personable person that
he is
I've ever met.
And it's so genuine. It's not a show with him. He genuinely wants to help everyone walk around their rig. I mean, how many vehicles does he do a day on that thing at like Smoky Mountain? Hundreds. God. And he genuinely wants to tell you where the ports are you need to address, where, what's limiting you here. Like, he genuinely wants to do that. And you don't find people like that, very often.
Yeah. The first time I got on his ramp, I got a 900 and he's like, you could probably get 1,000 if you did this, and this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that.
That's right. That's right.
So there was one portion of the Pacific Northwest trip that I have a question about, and maybe you can help me out.
Shoot, man.
I'm going to go ahead and share this video because it looked like fun, and I want to know why Armando was not filmed doing this.
Well,
did he not go on it?
Yeah, I went on it.
He went on it. So the issue here was, it's not a very exciting answer. The issue here was they limited our filming because the company ownership wouldn't allow you to film. So they agreed to let us do this much, but that's why you don't see the whole run, or we couldn't do GoPros because there was a limitation. We weren't even supposed to go on this. It was sold out. And luckily, Jose worked his magic and talked us into getting on it.
Got us all turned because they were like, nope, sorry.
They said no way. But yeah, they wouldn't let us film, and that's just it was in our shot list, and we thought this is going to be great. It'd be such a cool little experience on the Elevated experience, and it was limited, unfortunately. So.
See, I had a whole different answer in my head, kind of like, when fat guys want to go skydiving, but they can't because they're too fat. I thought there was maybe a weight limitation for the roller coaster.
No, there wasn't. I was well under it, fucker. Hey, and if there's some sort of activity where there's a chance of death, I'm in it.
For the most part, yeah, that's correct.
How fast did you think you guys got on that roller coaster?
It's not super fast.
No, maybe it's not.
Maybe you're 40, 45 miles per hour, maybe.
It's limited. So the whole deal with going on those, right, is the competition or whatever is to not touch the brake ever. But they sense how close you are to the sled in front of you, and it automatically brakes you. So you can't just let it go free fall and fly down the hill. Like, it's limited.
Yeah, there's still families and kids there, so you can't really destroy. They don't want you destroying any kids or families.
Yeah, I remember going to Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge when I was little, and the Alpine slide did not have that at that point. And at the end of the track would come down, not into a building like it does now, but it would just come down, and they would have tires bolted, laying flat up the track, and so you would slow down and hit the tires, and that's what would stop you.
There was an Alpine slide in Colorado, in Morrison at one point. And they closed it down because people kept dying on that fucker. When you start to bank on some of these downhills, people would just fly off of this fucking bank and die. And there was no speed governing at all built into that thing because it was just a concrete slab of a chute. And you went down this thing on basically a little board with rollerblade wheels on it.
There was no tracks then. Like,
Yeah, there was no
oh,
tracks.
yeah, that's not a good idea at all.
Yeah.
So they eventually closed it down because of the death rate.
Yeah, good move.
Yeah.
There's only so much of that you can take. You know?
But I never got to it. I always wanted to, and with my luck, I probably would have died because I love to go fast.
Yeah.
And yeah, I probably would have died.
Have you been to the one in Smoky Mountain in Pigeon Forge?
No, not yet. I
There's
heard
two or three there now. They've opened another one, I think, 2 or 3. And
Yeah, I think there's 3 now out there now. Yeah.
we try to do them every year.
We've done a couple years. We've gone out and done them. We don't
Yeah.
do them every year, but we've gone out and done them a few years.
Yeah, they're fun.
So, what are your top 3 experiences, not off-road related?
Just in life in general.
Yeah,
Can I just take family out of it so I don't say something stupid? Like,
sure.
well, I got married and I had the birth of 2 kids. Like that's that's probably obviously the top 3. But if I take those out and do 4, 5, 6, we'll say, because my wife will probably listen to this.
Hi, Jess.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to put. I'm definitely putting the Bob Moab trip that I took my dad to really high up there. To be honest,
He looked like he had a blast.
He had a blast. It was really outside of his comfort zone. He didn't decide to go on that trip until about the week before. He had just recently retired, and so he had never had that type of free time on his hands. And so when I kind of brought it up, and then at first he said, "I just don't want you having to drive out there the whole way by yourself again. What if I just ride out there with you?" And then he was either going to rent a car and go explore somewhere or whatever. And I said, "Why don't you just go with me?" And luckily, Armando, Will, me, JP, some other guys, we'd rented a big house. And so we had a place for him to stay. He had a bunk bed with me. And so that was up there pretty damn high. That's something I'm glad I got to experience with him before he got to the age where he just didn't want to do it. But it was very much outside his comfort zone. But he had a blast. And it couldn't pick a better trip to go on, because if it had been EJS, it would have been so much more pomp and circumstance around everything that was going on in the schedule. We just hung out. It allowed us to kind of do what we wanted to do. So that was pretty damn high up there. I'm going to wrap the entire 2019 show season into one thing, because that was the first really heavy show season that I had with my core group of guys that ended up being so close to me. 2019 was a damn whirlwind for a lot of different reasons, but man, was it fun. And thank God COVID hit in 2020, because I don't know if we could have survived 2020. I think COVID was a gift to us, to 5 or 6 people. I think it is what it is. But that 2019 and just how involved I got in the industry at that point, I'd kind of hit my stride here at the business to an extent, and we were doing good. And so it allowed me to really be involved. And so that was great. Outside of that, probably snowmobiling through Yellowstone in the winter, over a 3 or 4 day trip that I did. And that was early on when I got married. My wife and I, along with my family, went out there, and just I've been to Yellowstone a lot of different times during the summer months or before the snow hits. But being able to go out there, the roads are closed, and just to rent some snowmobiles and do those epic treks and still see the animals, that was pretty special. And I'm sure there's other stuff that I've been lucky enough to do, but those 3 pop in my mind pretty quick. And most of them are involved with outdoor things. I mean, that's just kind of where I find some peace and really like, I don't want to say sharing that with other people, because it's not mine to share necessarily, but just experiencing it with other people. That's kind of where I find that happiness, to be honest.
And you hunt, right?
I used to hunt. To be honest, I haven't done that a lot. I haven't hunted a lot in the last 5, 6 years at least. Just since my kids, I gave up golf for the most part. When my son was born, we lived on a golf course. I was golfing 5 days a week with a group of guys. And as soon as we had my son, I made the commitment. My wife and I kind of talked, and I kind of quit for a while, and I just never really got back into it. Hunting is something that's something on my short list to get back into, especially duck hunting. Deer hunting's fine. I did a lot of that, but the fowl, that's kind of where I want to get back into. And I know you've gotten into that.
Oh yeah,
over the past year, and Matt is a huge proponent of that. And so I have people to go do it with. I just need to take the time.
So since you go ahead,
and and your son's getting to be almost a good age to have a buddy to come with too. So
100%, dude.
100%.
You know, any place where they have juvenile hunt, it's a big bonus to have a kid, man, because you can get out there early. And so the earlier I can get him out there, the better. It's, whether my wife likes it or not, I'm going to get him shooting this year. I mean, he'll be 9. He's plenty old enough to go shoot. First gun that I ever shot was given to me by my dad's father as an old 22. And that's the first gun I want him to shoot, but I can get him into some stuff pretty quick. So
since you already brought Matt up, I don't have the risk of getting kicked in the nuts by Matt because he said, "Stop mentioning me on the podcast." Now I'm kicking the nuts.
Yeah.
So since you brought it up, it's fair game now. He just had a kid, and so do you think his hunting is pretty much done for a while?
Just till the season starts, man. I think that's something that Matt's pretty damn passionate about, and I hope he's still, I love you, Caitlin, allowed to do that. To be honest, because listen, hunting, like golf and a lot of other things, takes up a lot of time and resources, and so I hope he gets to continue to do that, even if he has to take a short time off. I hope he gets to do it because I want to go with him. To be honest, I'm at a point where I can make that time, and I need him to be available. So, speaking of Matt, too. You want a throwback banner?
Oh, that's still in the shop.
Yeah, I can't get rid of it. Full disclosure, behind that, I can't believe I'm saying this, behind that is a hole the size of a basketball when I got mad at a vendor one day for not shipping out product, and I put my elbow through that whole door, and so that's covering it up. It is what it is.
Oh, that's funny. I've had a fair share of holes put in walls and doors myself.
Listen,
so
just part of life, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's better than hitting a brick wall. That's not forgiving.
Damn straight. Yeah, done that too. Years and years ago, but yeah, I'd rather hit a hollow core door than something else. I've had my fair share of those episodes, but they're few and far between now, which is nice.
Yeah. So I know you're a fan, not of recently, but in the past you've been a fan of the brown liquor. As you know, yeah. Armando and I have talked quite a bit about whiskey since I started drinking it. Yeah. What's your favorite, or what's your go-to?
My go-to is Jack Daniel's single barrel. That's like you mentioned earlier. Growing up in Tullahoma, so close to the distillery, Jack Daniel's is just kind of, that's what people drank. That's what people look forward to when they turn 16, 17, 18, trying to get a drink before they were of legal age. But through college, that's what I drank. I liked, at that point, it was just old number 7, single barrel. I don't even think was out at that point, but, mixing Jack and Coke or having it straight. So Jack is definitely my go-to. I love Bullet Orange Label. I'm not a fan of the rye, but I'm a big old fashioned guy. And so making old fashioned, the if you want to call it like the ritual around it and preparing it, I really enjoy that. Like a craft cocktail more than just a mixed drink. So that's kind of my go-to, to be honest. I love going to restaurants that have, craft drinks. All that's right up my alley. As I shared with you guys a little earlier, I've taken a pretty good break from that, 6 to 8 months at least. Mm-hmm. And that was more just a personal decision. I kind of got back in the gym, on the first Elevated Experience trip to Colorado. The last day on that Friday, we were coming down. What was it? Devil's Punch Bowl? Is that what it was called? Devil's.
No. We were.
What was it called?
On that. It was
the horrible pass. Last day.
It was a pass. Schofield Pass.
Okay. Well, whatever it was, we had a pretty rough day the last day on Friday. Corey took us down this trail, and I tried to move a boulder by myself on the trail and completely ruptured my distal bicep tendon, and my bicep rolled up all the way up my arm, and I was out of commission for about 8 months. And in that period of time, I gained weight. I got lazy. I wasn't eating well. And so when all that is now healed up, I kind of made the decision to lay off some vices for a while. And so for the most part, I'm doing the carnivore diet right now, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of given up brown liquor. The only thing I really enjoy alcoholic right now is I've kind of gotten into craft ciders and just don't know why, but they're available here. There's a lot of really cool places up in Nashville that are putting out some good products. So I'll have a couple of those here and there, and I'm not out of brown liquor forever at all. It just kind of took a break from it after, 25 years. So it's kind of where I am, but I still love it. I love the variation of it. I love the history behind a lot of it. I worked at Jack Daniel's, in the marketing area doing tours and things. So I love the history behind that and how the origin started. And so I I'll be back at it at some point, but it's just something I hadn't partaken in a lot as of recent. So
I finally had an old fashioned a couple weeks ago, and oh my god! Like, first thought was this is dangerous,
super dangerous.
This goes down so quick, and I was like, "Can you bring 2 more, please?"
That's right. It's a great drink, and it is very addictive because it's so good. Yeah. And it's one of the older cocktails I think in the country. If you go down to some of those bars in New Orleans, it was like that in the Sazerac. Sazeracs are great. There's some cool places down there that we visit. Every time we go to New Orleans, we go to these old hole-in-the-wall craft cocktail bars, and that's there too, man. And they make them all kinds of ways, but so damn good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We just got back from New Orleans.
Hell yeah.
Got 4 days out there and
nice.
Did all those little bars and all kinds of cool things. I actually got 2 new drinks that I think I sent you the picture of that Bloody Mary with bourbon.
Yes,
Gabe.
Yeah.
Gabe.
Yes.
And then I had a basil sunrise.
Oh, okay.
Basil Hayden.
Basil Hayden.
Made like a tequila sunrise. No tequila. I don't drink tequila. So, so a bourbon sunrise. It was like my morning thing. I'm a bourbon sunrise, whatever you got.
I love morning drinking, man. I know it sounds terrible, but I do.
That was day drinking. It was day drinking all day. Some Sazeracs definitely were put down.
Oh, yeah.
I think I had an old fashioned and some other local drink.
New Orleans is such a slimy town, but man, is it cool.
Yeah, it's so fun. We walked like 25 miles in 3 days.
Am I the only one that drinks an old fashioned and starts to think in my head, now I feel like Don Draper?
No, I feel like that all the time.
I don't even need an old fashioned.
There's a level you could be in your boxers, but there's a level of sophistication when you order that drink, I think. So I think you're in good company there.
Okay, good. Now I don't feel like an idiot. I might look like an idiot, but I won't feel like one.
Yeah, there's some good places here in Murfreesboro that make good cocktails. That we found. I've lived up here, I don't know, 4.5 years, I guess. And we've kind of found our little spots. And Greg Owen over at the Goat here in town is a great mixologist.
Yeah,
dude. Greg is he's a big Jeep guy, overland guy. We've got an overland trip down towards Chattanooga here in about 2 weekends that he's put together. But he's one of the high management over there, but he still loves mixing drinks in the evenings when he works, and he makes great cocktails.
They make a great old fashioned.
They do, man. And farmhouse tops, man. Farmhouse tops are the shit.
Oh my god! Every time I go, I have to have an order of that.
Yes,
tots and old fashions.
Jessica and I went Saturday. Kids were taken care of. They'd stayed with my parents, and we woke up and went and had our early lunch over at the Goat. Man, had a blast. I
tried making them at home, and it was good, but it just wasn't the Goat.
It's not the same.
No.
I got into making it at home pretty heavy and muddling everything and getting the right simple syrups, and they're still good, and they'll still get you there, but it's not the same. You're right.
Yeah. Well, we took enough of your time. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me.
It was a fun conversation.
Definitely.
Absolutely. We'll have to get together soon. I mean, we live so close to each other, and hell, Armando, we'll send you some plane tickets. You need to come in soon. So
no, he just needs to move here.
That's a plan. There's a plan. The plan is to be there soon.
Yeah, if your kid would get done with college earlier, you can go ahed and get here. I need you to have that lake house.
As the saying goes, fuck them kids. He just needs to move.
Getting there.
Yeah.
Getting there, buddy.
All right, everyone. Elevated Offroad in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Middle Tennessee. For all your Jeep and truck needs, give Chambliss a shout. The number is right there, 615-229-6331. That's the shop you want to go to for anything you need.
Chambliss,
thanks again. And
thanks, guys. Love you both.
Thank you, brother. Love you, brother.
Bye.
See you guys next week.